Welcome to the Sex and the City series, you guys. I'm Charlie, aka Miss Charlize, and this is going to be a Sex and a series that is not just going to be about book reading. I'm going to talk about the movie. If possible, I will play movie clips from the actual movies. I have the TV series, everything. I just want to show you guys. I want to make this an actual fun series to actually tune into. Now, what you just heard was one of the jazzy versions of the Sex and the City theme song that they play usually at the beginning of each show. Now, of course, you guys know that the TV series and the movies were based off the book originally. And this is one of the books. This book came out in 2001, and the author is Candace Bushnell. And as you can see, it's now a motion major picture. So, of course, this book came out probably somewhere around the time that the movie did. But, of course, the book was the first thing that came out, and then they based everything off of the book, of course. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the little theme song. I'm going to play that every time I begin a new chapter, of course, in the Sex and the City series. Now, each video I'm going to try to make at least up to 15 minutes long. So I'm going to try to get at least a chapter done in one reading, but we might have to split it into parts depending on how long the chapter is. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the series. I hope you stay with the series, and because it's going to be fun, I'm going to make sure I make it fun. I'm going to play certain music from the actual movies, all kinds of stuff. Now, I read the introduction to you guys a little bit earlier. I hope you did not miss that. If you did, go back through my videos and check out the introduction of the Sex and the City, of course. So, let's go ahead and get started, you guys, with Chapter 1 out of the Sex and the City book. Chapter 1, My Unsentimental Education. Love in Manhattan? I don't think so. Let me take a drink real quick, y'all. I'm excited. Here's a Valentine's Day tale. Prepare yourself. An English journalist came to New York. She was attractive and witty, and right away she hooked up with one of New York's typically eligible bachelors. Tim was 42, an investment banker who made about $15 million a year. For 2 weeks they kissed, held hands, and then on a warm fall day, he drove her to the house he was building in the Hamptons. They looked at the plans with the architect. I wanted to tell the architect to fill in the railings on the second floor, so the children wouldn't fall through, said the journalist. I expected Tim was going to ask me to marry him. On Sunday night, Tim dropped her off at her apartment and reminded her that they had dinner plans for Tuesday. On Tuesday, he called and said he'd have to take a rain check. When she hadn't heard from him after 2 weeks, she called and told him, "That's an awfully long rain check." He said he would call her back later in the week. He never did call, of course. But what interested me was that she couldn't understand what had happened. In England, she explained, meeting the architect would have meant something. Then I realized, of course, she's from London. No one's told her about the end of love in Manhattan. Then I thought, she'll learn. Welcome to the age of uninnocence. The glittering lights of Manhattan that served as backdrops for Edith Wharton's bodice heaving trysts as still glowing. But the stage is empty. No one has breakfast at Tiffany's, and no one has affairs to remember. Instead, we have breakfast at 7 a.m. and affairs we try to forget as quickly as possible. How did we get into this mess? Truman Capote understood our 90s dilemma. The dilemma of love versus the deal, all too well. In Breakfast at Tiffany's, Holly Golightly and Paul Verjack were faced with restrictions. He was a kept man, she was a kept woman, but in the end they surmounted them and chose love over money. That doesn't happen much in Manhattan these days. We are all kept, men and women, by our jobs, by our apartments, and then some of us by the pecking order at Mortimers and the Royalton, by Hampton's beachfront, by row or front row garden tickets, and we like it that way. Self-protection and closing the deal are paramount. Cupid has flown the co-op. When was the last time you heard someone say, I love you, without tangling on the inevitable, if unspoken, as a friend? When was the last time you saw two people gazing into each other's eyes without thinking, yeah, right? When was the last time you heard someone announce, I'm truly madly in love, without thinking, just wait until Monday morning? And then what turned out to be the hot non-Tim Allen Christmas movie? Disclosure, for which 10 or 15 million moviegoers went to see unwanted, unaffectionate sex between corporate Eurotomatics. Hardly the stuff we like to think about when we think about love, but very much the stuff of modern Manhattan relationship. There's still plenty of sex in Manhattan, but the kind of sex that results in friendship and business deals, not romance. These days, everyone has friends and colleagues. No one really has lovers, even if they have slept together. Back to the English journalist. After 6 months, some more relationships, and a brief affair with the man who used to call her from out of town to tell her that he'd be calling her when he got back into town, and never did. She got smart. Relationships in New York are about detachment, she said. But how do you get attached when you decide you want to? Honey, you leave town. Love at the Brewery Bar, Part 1. It's Friday night at the Brewery Bar. It's snowing outside and buzzing inside. There's the actress from Los Angeles looking delightfully out of place in her vinyl gray jacket and miniskirt, with her gold medallioned, two-tanned escort. There's the actor, singer, and party boy, Donovan Lynch, in a green down jacket and a fuzzy beach hat with ear flaps. There's Francis Ford Coppola at a table with his wife. There's an empty chair at Francis Ford Coppola's table. It's not just empty. It's alluringly, temptingly, tauntingly, provocatively empty. It's so empty that it's more full than any other chair in the place. And then, just as when the chair emptiness threatens to cause a scene, Donovan Lynch sits down for a chat. Everyone in the room is immediately jealous, pissed off. The energy of the room lurches violently. This is romance in New York. The happily married man. Love means having to align yourself with another person. And what if that person turns out to be a liability? Said a friend. One of the few people I know who's been happily married for 12 years. And the more you're able to look back, the more you've proven right in hindsight. Then you get further and further away from having a relationship, unless something big comes along to shake you out of it. Like your parents dying. New York has built up a total facade that you can't penetrate, he continued. I feel so lucky that things worked out for me early on, because it's so easy not to have a relationship here. It almost becomes impossible to go back. The happily sort of married woman. A girlfriend who has married called me up. I don't know how anyone makes relationships work in this town. It's really hard. All the temptations, going out, drinks, drugs, other people. You want to have fun. And if you're a couple, what are you going to do? Sit in your little box of an apartment and stare at each other? When you're alone, it's easier, she said, a little wisely. You can do what you want. You don't have to go home. The Bachelor of Coco Pazzo. Years ago, when my friend, Cope Donkin, was one of the most eligible bachelors in New York, he dated every woman in town. Back then, we were still romantic enough to believe that some woman can get him. He has to fall in love someday, we thought. Everyone has to fall in love, and when he does, it will be with a woman who's beautiful and smart and successful. But then, those beautiful and smart and successful women came and went, and he still hadn't fell in love. We were wrong. Today, Capet sits at dinner at Coco Pazzo, and he says he's ungettable. He doesn't want a relationship, doesn't even want to try, isn't interested in the romantic commitment, doesn't want to hear about the nurses in someone else's head, and he tells women that he'll be their friend and they can have sex with him, but that's all there is, and that's all there's ever going to be. And it's fine with him. It doesn't even make him sad anymore the way it used to. Love at the Brewery Bar, Part 2. At my table at the Brewery Bar, there's a Parker, 32, a novelist who writes about relationships that inevitably go wrong. His boyfriend, Roger, Skipper Johnson, an entertainment lawyer. Skipper is 25 and personifies the Gen X dog disbelief in love. I just don't believe I've met the right person and get married, he said. Relationships are too intense. If you believe in love, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. You just can't trust anyone. People are so corrupted these days. But it's the one ray of hope, Parker protested. You hope it will save you from cyclism. Skipper was having none of it. The world is more fucked up now than it was 25 years ago. I feel pissed off to be born in this generation when all these things are happening to me. Money, AIDS, and relationships, they're all connected. Most people my age don't believe that they'll have a secure job. When you're afraid of the financial future, you don't want to make a commitment. I understood his cynicism. Recently, I'd find myself saying I didn't want a relationship because at the end, unless you happen to get married, you are left with nothing. Skipper took a gulp of his drink. I have no alternatives, he screamed. I wouldn't be in shallow relationships, so I do nothing. I have no sex and no romance. Who needs it? Who needs all these potential problems like disease and pregnancy? I have no problems. No fear of disease, psychopaths, or stalkers. Why not just be with your friends and have real conversations and a good time? You're crazy, Parker said. It's not about money. Maybe we can't help each other financially, but maybe we can help each other through something else. Emotions don't cost anything. You have someone to go home to, you have someone in your life. I had a theory that only place you could find love and romance in New York was in the gay community. That gay men were still friends with extravagance and passion, while straight love has become closeted. I had this theory partly because of all I had read and heard recently about the multimillionaire who left his wife for a younger man, and then boldly squirreled his young swain around Manhattan's trendiest restaurants, right in front of the gossip colonists. There, I thought, is a true lover. Parker was also proving my theory. For instance, when Parker and Roger first started seeing each other, Parker got sick. Roger went to his house to cook him dinner and take care of him. That would never happen with a straight guy. If a straight guy got sick and he'd just started dating a woman and she wanted to take care of him, he would freak out. He would think that she was trying to wheedle her way into his life, and the door would slam shut. Love is dangerous, Skipper said. If you know it's dangerous, that makes you treasure it, and you'll work harder to keep it, Parker said. But relationships are out of your control, Skipper said. You're nuts, Parker said. Roger went to work on Skipper. What about old-fashioned romantics? My friend Carrie jumped in. She knew the breed. Every time a man tells me he's a romantic, I want to scream, she said. All it means is that a man has a romantic-sized view of you, and as soon as you become real and stop playing into his fantasy, he gets turned off. That's what makes romantics dangerous. Stay away. At that moment, one of those romantics dangerously arrived at the table. Alright, you guys, so I'm reaching 15, and we're already at 14 minutes and 30 seconds. So, coming up on part 2, we're going to continue more of chapter 1 of Sex and the City, you guys. So, stay tuned to part 2, you guys.